everyone, I have a special guest. This is Ashley.
Hi!
She has a YouTube channel also. Go check it out because we did a fun video there on my top 6 favorite beauty products for summer.
They're good ones.
Yeah.
They're so good. You're going to want to see this.
I'm going to put a link down below to her channel and to the video. But
Good.
in the meantime, Ashley is also a mom, and this little munchkin is 4 months old now and ready to be sleep trained. And guess what?
I'm here to help. I'm
Yes.
here for the rescue.
She is going to help. So she has her top 5 sleep training tips right now. First off, let's talk about sleeping.
Okay, it's the most important thing you can do for yourself as a mom. You know, without sleep, you basically start to lose your mind. And in the beginning, sleep is not consistent and you're getting woken frequently. So you need to start sleeping as soon as possible and get your baby to sleep as soon as possible through the night. So by 6 weeks, I got Smith to sleep through the night. And I feel like my #1 tip for doing that is to get on a routine and stick to it in the beginning.
Yep.
This was key for us. So we went with sleep, eat, play, and that actually helps the baby learn what to expect throughout the day. So they always know they're gonna get their sleep, they know they're gonna get fed, and they know they're gonna have a little bit of fun time with mama. But this is getting them in the routine so when they can start going longer for feedings, that they can actually eat more during the day, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But babies love routines, and this is really good for you
It makes
guys.
sense, yeah.
If you can actually sit around the house for the first few weeks and just really get into this great routine, it's really gonna help you. It's not that fun in the beginning, and as you were talking about earlier, you basically sat right here for the first month.
First month, I was right here, and all I did was feed him,
Yeah.
and then like lay here, and then feed him. I felt like he was eating like every hour.
They
or
do
something.
basically in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard and it's so taxing on you, I feel like, and then you don't get a lot of sleep. So this kind of takes us into our second tip.
Yep.
Sleep begets sleep. So I don't know if you've heard that saying before.
Kind of. I've heard that if you don't catch up on your sleep, you will pay the piper.
Yeah, you definitely will. And babies will too. So Cherish the first 6 weeks is great.
I read this whole entire book right before, because we had lunch a month before I had my baby.
Yeah.
And this was the first thing that Ashley recommended to me. She was like, read this book. I feel like I got some really great tips. It didn't completely work for me.
Yeah.
That first 6 weeks thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're 4 months in, and now I'm like, Ashley, I need some help. But I felt like there were some really great tips in there.
Yeah, I feel like this book is full of like little things that you don't even think about as a new mom. So a lot of moms are afraid of a lot of naps during the day because then they think babies won't sleep at night if they sleep too much during the day. It's actually the total opposite of that. The amount of naps and the amount of sleep that they get during the day equals longer nighttime rest, which is so weird, and I don't get it still, and I'm not a sleep expert and I don't claim to be, but it works.
Well, what I read, I think there was a little bit of that in there,
Yes,
right? In
there
the
is.
book. So something that I had read about that is if they start to get fussy and they feel like they need more sleep during the day and everything, then they sleep worse at night because they're so fussy.
So overly tired is definitely a thing, and you don't want your baby to get overly tired, and especially if you've dealt with the witching hour, you know what I'm talking
like
about.
Around 6, 7 p.m. when suddenly he's gone from this beautiful, joyful baby to like crying.
Something hits the fan, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
It's just like all hell breaks loose, and it's not a fun time for mommy or baby. So don't let it get to that point. So in the beginning, it's like every hour and a half, basically. You want your baby going down for a nap. So whether you're baby wearing them and doing that, or putting them in your bed or in their crib, whatever you're doing, make sure they get their naps during the day and their rest. They really need that. They're tiny little babies, and they need to grow. And are you okay? Yeah,
fine.
you're sleepy right now, aren't
It's
you?
time for a nap.
Pay attention to those cues too. So when they're rubbing their eyes or getting kind of fussy, put them down. So this leads me right into tip number 3. So when you're putting your baby down, you really need to swaddle them every time. I'm a firm believer. I guess during naps, you know, sometimes if you're baby wearing them or whatever, you're just holding the baby, it's fine. But get in the routine of swaddling them. And a lot of moms say, my baby doesn't like to be swaddled.
Yeah.
He fights and breaks it open.
He's like
that's
Houdini.
okay. Yeah, but that's okay. Babies actually need to be swaddled. I've been told this by many pediatricians, and it helps them sleep in the long run. It really makes them feel safe and cozy, and it's just like your belly. And there's this saying that there's the 4th trimester. I feel like that's really true.
Absolutely
so
true.
That first few months, you know, you really need to keep them swaddled. And the one that I really love is the summer swaddles because it has Velcro, and it was so easy for me. I got really like stressed out wrapping the baby in all these swaddles and like tucking things in places. The Miracle blanket I thought was okay, which you really like that one, right?
I'm a big fan of the Miracle blanket, and I was actually that mom who walked into my pediatrician's office, and I was like, he doesn't like to be swaddled. Like, he just won't, you know, and that's
yeah.
it. And she was like, and I had said I had tried all the Velcro stuff, and the thing I didn't like about the Velcro was that it's definitely really easy to use, but if you have to take it off in the middle of the night, he was pooping a lot in the middle of the night. And so every time he'd poop, I'd have to, like, you know, I wanted to be like really like stealth about it, but then it'd be like, yeah, exactly. You'd like pull it off and it'd make this noise, and then the baby's eyes would open, and you'd be like, no. So anyway, so I told my pediatrician that, and she said the Miracle blanket is literally a miracle.
A game changer.
Yeah, it is. And you just like, you lay the baby right here, you tuck this under him, tuck this again, and then you put his little feet under there, wrap this, and then you wrap him with this long part. And that's what Ashley's talking about, is she wasn't really into the whole
it felt like a lot of work. I couldn't, like, my brain could not handle much at that point, so I was just trying to do as minimal as possible. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. And the other thing I was gonna say too is put them in their crib. So a lot of times I feel like moms in the beginning have the baby sleeping in their room, and that's okay, but what we found out early on is that we were actually waking the baby. And I don't know if it's because I was like tossing and turning, or if it's because he could smell me and wanted to eat.
That's definitely a thing.
That is a thing, right? It's weird. It sounds so crazy, but it's a thing. And as soon as we put him in his crib at night, he started sleeping for so much longer. It sounds crazy. I don't know why, but I feel like that's a real thing in life.
Yeah.
So swaddling and crib is a really big thing.
Yeah. So now tip 4.
Yeah, so I feel like if you really want to get your baby to sleep throughout the whole night, it all comes down to feeding, and you do not want a hungry baby going to bed. Right. So daytime feedings are key. The more that they get fed during the day, the more they're gonna sleep at night, because you don't have to wake up to feed them, which makes sense. Like, it's common sense, obviously, to think about that. In the beginning, they can't hold a lot in their tiny little stomachs, but keep trying to stretch it and giving them more ounces during the day. It's really gonna help. And this is a really crazy thing, but I've always heard the saying, don't wake a sleeping baby. Whoever said that, like, I don't know, I'm so mad at you. Please stop saying that. That's a complete lie.
You're saying like during the day.
During the daytime, you need to wake the baby for feedings, because this is getting you into A, that routine that we talked about, and B, the more feeding. So if you let your baby sleep for 4 hours at a time during the day, they're already behind a feeding, and that's just one more feeding you're gonna have to wake up for during the middle of the night.
That makes sense.
No!
So how often should you wake them? Like what should be the time
So
period?
it depends on the age. So in the beginning, obviously you're feeding on demand. So this doesn't really apply, because baby's just gonna probably wake you every hour almost, or not wake you if you're awake already during the day. But you can go 2 hours at a certain point, and then 3 hours at a certain point. So I really recommend listening to your pediatrician. If they say every 2 hours feeding, wake your baby at that 2 hour mark and feed your baby, because this is only gonna help you and help your baby. Your baby needs to sleep as well as you need to sleep. So it's gonna make for a much happier family in general.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. All right, and then the last tip, tip 5.
Okay, so I think you probably heard of this before if you read Cherish the First 6 Weeks. This was a big part of the book, dream feedings. Have you heard of this?
I mean, yes, okay. I read all about it.
Okay, a lot of people are like, a dream feed? What the heck is that? It's actually a feed where you wake the baby around, actually don't wake the baby, you just kind of get them up and feed them around 10 or 11 or whatever time works for you before you yourself get into that deep sleep phase. So this is helping your baby stretch the sleep longer. So say you put the baby down at 7, then you get them out of bed with no lights on, no music on, no sound, you're barely waking them, you're just feeding them. Yeah, like they're basically
dreaming.
It
almost like seems to them like, did this really happen?
Yeah, and hopefully to you too. Hopefully you're in that state where you're just super relaxed and ready to get a good night's sleep. And then that way the baby can stretch till hopefully 2 a.m. And then it'll stretch eventually, once you're giving more formula, more ounces, and feeding more during the day, then 3 a.m. they can sleep. So you're really getting that 10 to 3 sleep. That is a game changer in the world of mommy sleep, because in the beginning, if you're getting woken up every 2 hours to feed, and then you're getting a 5-hour stretch of sleep, you feel like you can actually accomplish something and be a normal human being the next day, you know? And you're spreading it longer and longer. So the more they eat during the day, it's gonna go to 4 a.m. and then 5 a.m. and then 6 a.m. and eventually now Smith sleeps 12 hours a night, and he really started sleeping 12 hours a night at 8 weeks. So I am a firm believer in these tips. It's definitely hard to stick to such a rigid routine and schedule in the beginning and to really stay on top of these feedings, especially if you're trying to nap during the day when they're napping and then you're like, I have to wake them up, it's 2 hours now. it's gonna be really worth it in the long run.
That
So
makes sense. Especially, the first couple of months, hopefully you have the luxury of being able to be home with the baby and not go right back into work, right?
Yeah.
And make that happen, right? Because once you start getting to work, I'm a prime example of this. I got right back into work, and then I messed up on all the routine and everything because it was just kind of all over the place.
It's too hard to keep up eventually. Yeah, it is really hard. But you know what? Now you're at the point where you can sleep train. I think pediatricians recommend either 14 pounds or 4 months.
Yeah.
So you're at the 4-month mark. So if you wanted to, you can go that route. I mean, I would suggest earlier on trying these things so you don't have to go the sleep training route. But it's going to be fine no matter what. He's going to sleep eventually. You're going to get a full night's sleep. And the sooner the better.
Right.
You
mentioned something about formula, like right before, like for the dream feed and
Right.
stuff like that. So for women like me who breastfeed throughout the day, something I've kind of been trying that a friend suggested was to give maybe like 1 bottle of formula, and that's right before he goes to sleep.
Yeah, I stopped breastfeeding at 6 weeks, and I really do feel like that had a lot to do with getting Smith to sleep through the night. I've heard from a lot of people that formula sits in their stomach longer and keeps them fuller for longer, so maybe that affected him, and maybe that's why I got such a good sleeper. So yeah, I would recommend if you are introducing formula, make it the last bottle of the night, whether it's the dream feed or the 7 o'clock feed, whatever you're doing. Or in the middle of the night, I guess you could do it as well. And have your husbands do it. You've been feeding the baby all day long, especially if you're breastfeeding. Make the hubby do a little work and have bonding time with the baby at night. It's a really special time, I feel like, for dads and babies. And so make that happen and introduce formula then if that's when you're gonna introduce formula.
That makes sense. Well, Ashley, these are great tips. Now I'm just gonna have you stay the night with me.
I will. I'm willing to do this.
All right, so you guys go over to Ashley's channel. I have the link below in the description. I also put a card up here that links to it. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I hope this helps. I hope it helps you guys too.
I hope so too. And maybe if everyone has questions or if you guys have tips, leave them in the comments.
Please.
And we will talk to you soon.
Yay.
Bye.